Hey there nation, welcome to the show. We help you to play miniatures wargaming on a budget. It is I, Commander CheapSkate, and now it's time for another edition of Warhammer the Golden Age. This is our series of Warhammer 8th edition fantasy battle reports. This is battle report number 31. It is a 3,000 point battle that is fought between my friend King Khalifa of his Schwarzwald Free Companies of the Empire versus yours truly of the Avelorn Guards of the High Elves. That's right, this is a 3,000 point fight between Empire as well as High Elves. I'm kind of running a different list a little bit, trying to do a little bit more experimentation with my High Elf army on this one. Since we're playing at 3,000 points, we're kind of like playing at that level now, and so we're going to try to bring you guys consistent 3,000 point battle reports for Warhammer 8th edition from this point onward, because this is the game that we love to play the most. So that's right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to throw it down here in a little bit, 3,000 points. I'm going to play some background music real quick and play some, and go ahead and show the army list for both armies. You can go ahead and freeze it and pause at your own leisure and take a look at what we're packing. Alright, ladies and gentlemen, let's get this on.
Assemble the army!
Alright, ladies and gentlemen, that takes directly to the deployment phase. As you can see, we are fighting on a 4x6 table. This is a really quick overhead shot so that we can see the entirety of the battlefield. I decided to do the deployment just a little bit differently in this battle report to show you what the layout of the battlefield looks like and talk about exactly what the battle game plan is for this battle report. So you can see I'm deployed on the near side of the board. My opponent is deployed on the far side of the board. As you can see, my army's kind of split up between two sub-forces really. I have my infantry forces on my left-hand side being supported by my bolt throwers. I also have all my cavalry forces on my right-hand side. As you can see, it's pretty much just kind of like your typical fix and flank maneuver when it comes to doing my army. I'm planning on trying to suppress my army with my infantry units, try to get them stuck in, then flank with my right hand units, with my cavalry units to try to destroy them that way as well. Unfortunately for me, the only thing I have protecting my left hand flank, however, are my bolt throwers. That's could prove a little bit of a problem since my opponent's has got a very strong left hand flank with his steam tank as well as his captain on Pegasus. His center lines are very, very powerful as well, but he's got a lot of light infantry in those units, so I could probably take those guys out in close combat. And his right hand flank is very, very secure. He's got a cannon as well as a Hellblaster volley gun, as well as a huge unit of Inner Circle Knights with great weapons. That's going to be kind of hard to bust down too. So my goal here is to try to destroy his right flank by taking out his cavalry units, fix his infantry units with my main troops and main battle lines, and then flank him with my cavalry. And that's pretty much what I'm planning to go for in this battle report. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, let's go ahead and zoom into the individual battle areas and talk about exactly where everyone's deployed at. Alright, making up my left-hand flank, I have my Falling Leaves of Avelorn. These are my 3 Reaper bolt throwers, sorry, not Reaper, my 3 Eagle Call bolt throwers. Pretty successful kind of defending my left-hand flank. I can multi-shot whatever's coming that way as well, but my main focus for this army, for these guys, is to shoot at my opponent's artillery as well as a steam tank, because those are very, very devastating in Empire Army. That's pretty much what I'm going for. After I take out those major targets, I can then probably take out his softer targets using multiple shots, 6 shots with my Reaper, or my Eagle Call bolt throwers, and then take those guys out as well. So that's pretty much why these guys are played here on the left-hand flank. Alright, making my center line is where pretty much the majority of my infantry is located at. Starting left hand side there, I got my Queen's Rangers, my Ever Queen's Rangers. Those are my 15 white lions with a war banner. In the center I have the Ever Wardens, which is my unit of 23 spearmen. They also have the standard discipline, that unit. They also have Teclis taking the front rank there as well, so it's kind of nice because I can then cast spells with Teclis and then give these guys bonuses to their ward saves for each successful save, for each successful spell that is cast by Teclis, which should be pretty good. So I should be able to give these guys a 4 ward save as well as their light armor. And plus they get a lot of attacks as well. The only thing I have to worry about is their low strength because they're just elves with strength 3 and they only have spears. On the right hand side I have my Lord Master's Blaze. That's my huge unit of 20 Sword Masters of Hoeth. They also got the Razor Stand in that unit as well, so they get +1 to their armor piercing for their weapons. So they get, I think, it's like -3 to armor saves, I think is what it'll be when those guys go up against anything that carries heavy armor. Those are going to chop right through them. And then right behind them, of course, I have my Sad Flutes. That's my unit of 24 archers with my Battle Standard Bearer located there, Silent Fane. He's there with the Crown of Command as well, and they're kind of there to kind of lay support and long-range fire. And finally, on my right-hand flank, I have my cavalry unit. Starting on the left-hand side, I have the Lancers of Avelorn. Those are a unit of 8 Silverhelm Knights. In that unit, I also have my level 2 Beast, Lord Beast caster. He's got Weason's Wild Form as well as the Savage Beast of Horos. He's also packing Ruby Ring of Ruin as well as a Dispel Scroll. But the main guy who's in that unit is Prince Tyrion himself. He's kitted out to kill with his combat effective, close combat, so needed some points to bring out my core, so I decided to use Silverhelms in order to do that. On the right hand of them, I have my Tyrannok Chariot. That's the Sun Runner. That's there just to kind of like cause some impact hits on the flank, also lead some support to my cavalry units. On the very far right hand side, I got my 8 Word Bearers. Those guys are 8 Illyrian Reavers with full armor, with light armor, shields, spears, bows, and full command as well. And they're there to kind of harass my opponent's flanks and to kind of draw out his units as well. So with that deployment done, we go directly to the Empire. Starting on the Empire's left-hand flank, you have the Panzerbearer, which is a steam tank, as well as Hans Jaeger and Königswinter. That's his captain, who's packing the Sword of Might, as well as a Charm Shield on a Pegasus, and I think that thing is there for war machine hunting. And for his center line, you can see the majority of his army. Starting on the left-hand side, he's got the Red Company, which is an attachment of 20 Halberdiers that's attached to the Black Company, which is that huge unit of 40 great swords right in the middle there. That's kind of like his Death Star unit. Not only does he have his great swords in that unit, he's also got that unit with the standard discipline. He's also got his Battle Standard Bearer, who's packing the Griffin Banner, which gives these guys double rank bonuses in combat phase, which means that's very, very deadly. But the only good thing about that is they can't pursue, but nothing says that his detachments can't. So I got to make sure I take care of his detachments before I take care of that unit of great swords. He's also got his Archlector on there for his battle prayers. He's also got his level 4 wizard located in that unit as well. And then on the right hand side, he's got his other unit of 20 Halberdier detachment. That is the Blue Company. He also has forming a screen from his main infantry line. That's Rommel's Rangers. Those are the 10 Rangers with 2 units of 5 archer detachments as well. And the back, he's got his other 5 archers make up the rear right next to this Maximilian Max. That's his level 2 Lore of Metal caster as well. And I forgot to mention, his wizard, his level 4 battle wizard, is packing Book Asher, so he's level 5 basically. And he also has Lore of Life, I believe is what he has. So that makes up his very, very impressive center lines. And finally, make up the right-hand flank for King Khalifa. He has his Blitzen, which is his Hellblaster volley gun. Right next to them, of course, he's got that huge unit of 21 Knights, Inner Circle Knights, armed with great weapons and shields. Those guys are the Vagrant Brotherhood. They're led by another captain named Captain Tybalt Kraus. That guy's also packing a great weapon and shield as well. He's also riding a Barter Warhorse, and he's also carrying the Crown of Commands. That makes that unit very stubborn, which are pretty good. These guys are Strength 5 Reichsguard Knights, basically, for the cost of Inner Circle Knights, which is pretty devastating. Also, that unit also has a Steel Standard as well, so they get to reroll 1s for charges, pursues, things of that nature, and they also don't have to worry about movement penalties for barding. And then finally, up in that little watchtower, you have his cannon Donner. That's his great cannon, and that thing's kind of devastating as well. So like I said, very, very impressive line of infantry and cavalry and artillery that I got to take on. So that being said, we go directly to the Vanguard movement phase. And since I'm the only guy who's got light cavalry in this one, I move up my word bearers up 12 inches right behind that little autumn wood there. I'm moving to that location. Hopefully what I'm planning on doing is trying to draw the fire of his Hellblaster volley gun, because my goal is to have my cavalry kind of sweep to the right and start taking out his attachments to the right hand side, and have my infantry take out his center lines. That's pretty much the plan I'm going for there. So I can't do that though if his Hellblaster volley gun is, you know, destroying my stuff. So I'm using my word bearers kind of draw his fire, at the same time interfere with the movement of his knights and maybe draw the fire of his cannon as well, because these guys are just kind of sacrifice troops. So that makes a Vanguard movement. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 1. Alright, so that takes the top of turn number 1 for the Empire. They got initiative on this battle report, so they'll be going first. And this photo is taken directly after the move phase. And as you can see, he pretty much comes forward with his entire army. King Khalifa's Empire army is a very, very fighting army is what it is. It's very designed for a lot of close combat. There's some good shooting in there, but it's primarily designed just to kind of like chew up your enemy in close combat. As you can see, he pretty much moves up his troops. He doesn't really march anybody per se in his infantry units. He just kind of moves up his steam tank a couple of inches using his steam points, moves up 4 inches his whole line of infantry as well as his skirmishing archers. His artillery tank, of course, of course stays where they're at. He does march up Königswinter and Hans Jaeger, his Pegasus riding captain, on the left-hand flank next to that forest there to get -1 to ballistics hits on that part. And he also marches up his cavalry on his right-hand flank, which is that huge unit of Inner Circle Knights. He gets him in a kind of like a flanking position between the massive unpassable hill there on the right-hand corner of the board, as well as the autumn forest looking right down the barrel at my word bearers. So that pretty much makes a move for this one. Here's a close-up of Hans Jaeger and Königswinter taking position behind that forest to get -1 ballistics in order to go against him. And there's his steam tank, of course, going through those forests, heading straight towards my Falls of Avelorn, so that's kind of deadly. And as you can see, here's a picture close-up of his infantry units moving up quickly as I possibly can. They move up 4 inches. He sends his skirmishers up front so that way they can deal with any units that are charging this way and kind of run interference. At the same time, he's pretty much maintaining his line organization. However, that series of standing zones right there does divide his red company from the support of his yellow or black company, so that probably be kind of nice as well. Luckily for me, though, because he moved up his infantry units up 4 inches like that, he does kind of blindside himself, so that way his Hellblaster volley gun can't really concentrate far on the left-hand side of the battlefield. But that's not the real concern. My real concern is I got to worry about him dealing with that Hellblaster volley gun as I move my cavalry to the right, because that's where I'm planning on sending my troops. And of course, here's a final close-up of his Vagrant Brotherhood staring down the barrel at my Illyrian Reavers, which is actually terrifying because that is a huge unit of 21 Inner Circle Knights with great weapons with a captain with a crown of command, and I am absolutely terrified of that unit. That's one of 2 major units I got to worry about in this army that I'm fighting against. This unit as well as the unit of great swords with the halberdier support as well. So with move phase over, we go directly to the magic phase. Magic phase is pretty lackluster for my opponent. I largely dispelled most of his spells, but he did manage to get off Glittering Robes onto his unit of great swords. So those guys have +2 now to their armor save as well. So these guys are now carrying armor save 2 up for these great swords, which is actually pretty good for him considering. So with magic phase over, we go directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, the first thing that my opponent does, he opens up with his cannon from Panzerbear and manages to take out one of my Leaves of Avelorn, so now I'm down 1 bolt thrower already, which is pretty bad because I need 3 bolt throwers in order to effectively do what I want in this army, and I've just lost 1/3 of my artillery support, so that was absolutely devastating. Lucky for me, my other 2 Eagle Claw bolt throwers did pass their panic test, so I was worried about running away or not firing next turn, so that part's kind of nice as well. And unfortunately, during the shooting phase, 5 of my word bearers got shot off the table. It was from a combination of combined fire from both the great cannon as well as his archers. He had all of 10 units of his archers as well as his cannon open up on my word bearers. They were just rolling out of the box, and I was absolutely flubbing my rolls for armor saves against those bows. So because I only had 3 Illyrian Reavers left over, and then my opponent takes his Hellblaster volley gun and blasts the rest of my poor Illyrian Reavers off the table using his Hellblaster volley gun as well. So that was absolutely devastating. Just kind of shows you the power, the firepower in terms of artillery that my buddy King Khalifa is packing in this army. And since nobody's engaged in close combat, pretty much rounds up the turn for the Empire. We go directly to the bottom, turn number 1 for the High Elves after the move phase. Alright, so this is a bot on turn number 1 after the move phase for the High Elves. This is taking place after the move phase, like I said before. As you can see, I realize if I try to hold back and wait for my enemy to come to me, he's just going to shoot me to pieces with his artillery. So the best way in order to stop his artillery support from achieving its desired effect, I have to start going in there and fight as well. My army is pretty close combat oriented as well. So you can see in this picture, I pretty much just march up everything I possibly could. First thing I started doing is I take my main line of infantry, I take my Everqueen's Rangers as well as my Everwardens and the Lord Master's Blades, move them up their full 10 inches in their march, so they're right between the forest there and the standing stone as well, taking a position, fighting positions up there. At the same time, I also move up 8 inches my Lancers of Avelorn with Tyrion, as well as my level 2 Beast Mage there as well, right next to that forest, that way they can start charging directly at one of those the blue company and try to take those guys out as well. Yeah, my opponent has skirmishers on to take those guys out, but I can hope my plan is that hopefully I can take those guys out, overrun, and then overrun into the flanking units is pretty much my plan is as well. At the same time, move up my Tyrannok Charioteer, the Sunrunner, into a blocking position to protect the right-hand flank of my Silverhelm Knights against that huge unit of Inner Circle Knights, and then I move up my archers up 4 inches, that way they can start laying some long-range fire without having to march, so that way they can just go up 5 inches and then shoot that way as well. So that pretty much makes up the movement for turn number 1 for the High Elves. During the magic phase, it was pretty much a wash for me. I was unable to get in off any of my spells. My opponent was rolling out of the box for his dispel rolls, and I was rolling horribly for my magic rolls, which actually is kind of bad because I have Techless, and this guy's supposed to be the master of magic, but I just keep on failing using that character because my dice rolls are so bad. So because my opponent was pretty much able to dispel most of the spells I was throwing at him, I did manage to get off a Soul Quench spell and managed to kill 5 members of Rommel's Rangers, which are the 5 skirmishers that was in charge of the Black Company, so that part's kind of nice. I was able to get rid of him, but aside from that, that was all I was pretty much able to do during the magic phase. Pretty much lackluster on that part. So with magic phase over, go directly to shooting phase. And during the shooting phase, I took my sad flutes, had them open up on the 5 skirmishers for the Red Company, and managed to get those guys out as well. So that kind of opens up the pathway for my Everqueen's Rangers to charge through. My plan is to have my Everqueen's Rangers charge with the Red Company, defeat those guys, break them, or overrun them, or just destroy them flat out, and have them charge into the flank or into the rear of the Black Company is pretty much what I'm planning on doing with those guys. So that was pretty helpful for me. And both of my Eagle Call Bloodthorns and the Falling Leaves of Avelorn did manage to hit as well as wound the Panzer Baron. However, when I rolled my D3 wounds, I only managed to put 2 wounds on that thing. So that was absolutely devastating for me. It was very, very lackluster. I was hoping to put that thing down and out of commission by rolling perfect 6s to destroy that unit, that monstrosity, but all I managed to do was take it down 2 wounds. So things are not looking good for me. So with that being said, since no one's engaged in close combat, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the Empire. So that takes us to the top of turn number 2 for the Empire. This picture is taken after the move phase. And as you can see in this photo, he pretty much sends in a couple of his troops and starts charging in as well and start trying to engage my troops. At the same time, what he does, he first off his chargers, Houndsjaeger and Königsvictor charged into one of my Eagle Call Bloodthorns, so engage one of those guys in close combat, which is absolutely devastating because that guy is kitted out for war machine hunting, and I have nothing to do. I have nothing to fight against him with to use to fight against him, especially now that he's engaged in close combat. At the same time, he also charges his Red Company to charge into my Everqueen's Rangers, and he also sends in his 5 members of Rommel's Rangers to charge directly into my cavalry and get those guys bogged down. And he also sends his entire unit of Vagrant Brotherhood charging directly into my Reaver Chariot, which is absolutely kind of bad for me because he has to take some dangerous terrain tests, but he has so many knights in that unit, it doesn't really bother to make that those dangerous terrain tests at all. So as you can see here, pretty much engaged in close combat as well. Here's a close-up of Houndsjaeger and Königsvictor charging into one of my Falling Leaves of Avelorn, and those guys are engaged in close combat, and I have nothing to stop against this guy from just playing Mary Hob with my war machines, and so that's pretty scary. Here's also a close-up of his Red Company charging directly into my Everqueen's Rangers, and those guys will be engaged in close combat. I think he did that to try to stop me from getting my guys engaged into the flank of his what you call them, great swords, so more power to him, but I have a sneaky suspicion my guys are going to chop through these guys like no problem. Here's a close-up of 5 members of Rommel's Rangers charging into my Silverhelm Knights and Tyrion as well to kind of bog them down, so that's going to happen. It's going to be kind of funny to see. I have a sneaky suspicion that Tyrion will be able to just destroy these guys single-handedly in combat, so that's what happened here on the right-hand side. And here's a close-up of the Vagrant Brotherhood charging directly into my Reaver Chariot. He did lose 4 knights to dangerous terrain test because he had to charge through that autumn forest in order to do it. He did lose 4 Insurgent knights in the process of doing that, which is kind of good for me, but at the same time, though, he has so many knights in this unit, it's probably not going to do much of a difference for him, so that's pretty scary, because if he does this well, he could destroy my Reaver Chariot and then start sweeping along my right-hand flank, and I have nothing really to answer that charging situation, so that is pretty bad as well. So it charges over, you go directly to the remaining moves phase. Luckily for me, my opponent, when he rolled for the steam points for his Panzer Baron, he did roll a misfire on that part, so because of that, he did lose a lot of his steam points. So all he was able to do is just kind of roll 4 d6 inches. I think he rolled 4 or 5 inches from his previous position. So now he's just kind of like chugging along, heading directly towards my White Lions of Trace, which could be pretty bad if he does make contact with any of my infantry units, because that thing will bog them down like it's nobody's business. And here's a close-up of his rest of his army. He's got the Black Company taking position between that stone formation as well as the forest in order to protect his left-hand flank for his great swords. And he also moved up the Blue Company in order to take position in order to take on anything that might be charging his right-hand flank for his great swords. At the same time, he also moved up Rommel's Rangers in the center to kind of act as a blocking position as well. So with that being said, we go directly to the magic phase. And in the magic phase, it actually did a pretty good job actually dispelling most of his spells, so that part was kind of nice. However, he did get Flesh to Stone off onto that unit of Rommel's Rangers, so now those guys are carrying 2 extra toughness points, so those guys are now toughness 5. So, you know, just another thing to add a little bit of a speed bump. I'm thinking what my opponent's trying to do is try to keep my cavalry there, located there, hopefully failing to wound and kill or drive off Rommel's Rangers, so that way he can charge directly into the right-hand flank of my Silverhelms after he gets done destroying and overrunning my Terranok chariots, so that is pretty bad. During the shooting phase, Blitzen gets off a total of 28 shots. My buddy rolls 2 10s on the artillery dice and 1 8. He gets pretty much like the perfect right amount of maximum shots out of this thing without having to worry blowing it up. And the worst part is he takes his Hellblaster volley gun and aims it directly at my Swordmasters of Hoth, the Lord Master's blades. And he just guts my Swordmasters like it's nobody's business. He kills 11 of my Swordmasters in one bombastic, hellish bombardment of that thing going off on my guys. I was absolutely terrified about the number of wounds I took on that part. And the reason why I was actually kind of lucky I only got away with 11. He could have easily destroyed that unit, but unfortunately for him, he had to take some penalties for long range as well as shooting through some things. I think he had to roll like perfect 6s in order to make his shots, but still 11 of my great swords are gone just like that. And right now my great swords have pretty much been completely evaporated, and they're now combat ineffective at this point because they don't even get rank bonuses anymore at this point. I was extremely lucky that I managed to get off the leadership test for these guys to keep them from running away, because that was insane, the amount of damage that he caused. So that makes it the shooting phase of this Hellblaster volley gun. And Rommel's Rangers also managed to plink off one of my Everwardens as well, so that was kind of sad I did lose a Spearman. I know it's only one guy, but still, it always bothers me whenever I lose somebody else. Lucky for me, he did try to fire his Great Cannon, and when they went, and he was aiming at as my second Falling Leaves at Avelorn, my second Eagle Call Bolt Thrower, the one that's not engaged in close combat. When he did fire, he did hit, but when he rolled the bounce, he rolled a misfire, so because of that, the cannonball just stuck where it was, and luckily for me, I have one more Eagle Call Bolt Thrower left in the fight, so that was kind of nice. So with shooting phase over, we go directly to close combat. And the fight between Königswinter and Hans Jaeger, as well as one of my Falling Leaves at Avelorn, was just a case study in the stupidity of random dice rolling. It was actually really bad. I remember correctly, my buddy, I think I rolled 1s from my guys when I went to hit, so I didn't cause any hits at all. I think I rolled like 2 1s, and so because of that, I didn't hit anything. He rolled for his captain, rolled 2 1s, so that guy didn't hit anything either. And then when he rolled for his Pegasus to see if he caused any damage, he rolled a 1 and a 2. So basically, what these guys did is they just kind of roared at each other and looked at each other menacingly in the eye, and that's pretty much about it. Now, unfortunately for me, I won't be able to shoot that Pegasus Knight out of the sky with my second Eagle Call Bolt Thrower because he's engaged in close combat, so now I'm just kind of out of luck on that part. So all I can really do is just accept the fact that this captain on his Pegasus is in my flank, and there's nothing I can do about it. Over here in the left-hand flank, the fight between my Everqueen's Rangers and the Red Company was absolutely ridiculous. I killed 15 of those halberdiers like it was nobody's business. They did manage to kill 2 of my White Lions, which I was really sad about, but then again, these guys only have heavy armor. That's all they have. They only have a 5-up armor save, and they get -1 because of the halberds. That was kind of sad, so I lost 2 of my guys, but at the same time, that was no contest whatsoever. I chopped those 15 halberdiers down like the tree logs that they are. They take a back test, they fail, and they run. I pursued for 10 and managed to cut down the rest of the Red Company down like that, like they're like the sheep that they are. It was pretty amazing how that happened. So now that also puts me in a nice little flanking position to where I can now flank the Black Company, which is a huge unit of great swords. So pretty much my plan now is to try to get rid of Rommel's Rangers and then try to do a coordinated strike with my Everwardens, as well as my Lord Master's blades, as well as my White Lions of Trace, and then kind of envelop that unit of great swords and then beat them with combat resolution as well as flanking everything else of that jazz, and just kind of beat that unit to submission. So that's pretty much the plan I'm going for on that one. And then I finally do defeat those 5 Rommel's Rangers. They were not that difficult at all to kill off, even though with the +2 toughness. But instead of actually having these guys overrun into the Blue Company, I decided to hold them back instead and do a combat reform, so that way they can kind of take on that huge unit of Vagrant Brotherhood, that huge unit of knights with great swords, because great weapons. Because I have a sneaky suspicion he's going to try to flank me, and if I can, I kind of try to intercept him with my cavalry and do a cavalry on cavalry fight, and hopefully defeat him that way. Because I can't really afford to leave my right flank open to that huge unit of knights. It's just one of those things I can't do. And just as I suspected, my opponent, King Khalifa, he had no problem destroying my Reaver Chariot like it was nobody's business. But as you can see, this way he does a quick combat reform and faces units to the left-hand side, so that way he can start assaulting my whole main line on the right-hand flank. And that's pretty much what he was going for. I was expecting that's what my opponent was going to do, so that's why I didn't charge in my cavalry, because I needed my cavalry to kind of intercept this unit of knights and kind of take them on as well. So that pretty much makes up the movement phase, the close combat phase on this one. So with that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 2 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes us directly to the top to bottom of turn number 2 after movement phase for the High Elves. As you can see in this photo, I pretty much start charging in my guys as well. Like I said before, I realized really quickly if I just kind of stick around and try to take on my opponent, I will not be able to survive this, so I just started committing my troops as quick as I possibly can. First thing that I do is I charge in my Everwardens. They have no problem making direct charge against the Black Company, so now those guys are engaged in close combat as well. At the same time, I also charge in my Blue Company to deal with the, sorry, not the Blue Company, I charge in my Lord Master's Blades, the rest of my Sword Masters deal with the Blue Company, because those guys are causing all kinds of problems as well. Now, I also on the left-hand side there, I also kind of march and wheel around my white lines of trace, so that way they can charge into the left-hand flank of the great sword, so they can lend some support to my spearmen. And of course, I move up my my archers about 4 inches, so that way they can stay in range with their battle standard bearer. At the same time, take pot shots at anybody who might be left over, so that way I can cause some wounds that way. And if you notice on the right hand side there, my Silverhelm Knights are exactly where they're located at. And the reason why is because I pulled an epic fail and I forgot to move those guys during a combat reform in order to have them face the Vagrant Brotherhood, so that way I can charge into them last turn. So now I waste an entire movement phase doing that because reasons. Here's a close-up of my my Everwardens charging directly into Rommel's Rangers. Engage those guys, engage in close combat. Hopefully I can destroy those guys pretty quick, overrun, and then charge directly into the Great Swords. At the same time, I have my White Lines of Trace in a perfect flanking position. But then I realized at the same time that after I move those guys in flanking position that they're in perfect range of fire, being shot at by blitzing the Hellblaster volley gun, but I'm kind of praying that my opponent doesn't notice this during his next turn, so yeah, that was pretty rough. At the same time, here's a close-up of my Lord Master's Blades directly charging against the Blue Company. And here's a close-up of my epic failure as a Warhammer General. I forgot to do the combat reform, so that way I can take on the Vagrant Brotherhood my last round during the combat phase. So as you can see there, they're totally out of position. If you looked back at the previous picture, they're totally out of position to charge the Vagrant Brotherhood because they're out of their charge arc. So that was absolutely like a massive fail in my attempt. So I had to spend an entire turn just getting these guys reformed in position in such a way that they can charge directly into these Vagrant Knights when the time comes. So yeah. That just was an opportunity that slipped right through my fingers. Absolutely atrocious. I just can't believe I actually did that. So, yeah, with all that done, we go directly to the shooting phase. I'm sorry, I didn't mean shooting phase, I meant magic phase. So we go to the magic phase next. The first thing I do is to try to cast off several spells. I try to give some +1 toughness as well as +1 strength to any of my units that are engaged in close combat with Weason's Wild Form, but that doesn't fly off either. I try to do Savage Beast of Horus, and that didn't work either. I also tried to cast a couple of High Elf spells, High Lord Magic spells, but none of those got off either. However, I did manage to get one spell off. That was Arcane Unfortunate. I got that off onto Hans Jaeger, the Griffin Guard. That is the captain who leads the Great Swords. I managed to inflict a wound on him and also was able to destroy his Griffin banner, so now that unit doesn't get double bonuses for rank bonuses anymore, so that's kind of nice. Now I don't have to worry about breaking me, but at the same time though, it also frees him up to chase me down if I do horribly in close combat. So you know, I take what I can get when I can get it, unfortunately. So yeah, that pretty much makes it the magic phase on this one because I just rolled piss poor. And because my dice don't know how to abandon me, what I tried to do during the shooting phase, I managed to hit as well as wound the Panzer Baron with my free remaining falling leaves of Avelorn, but I only managed to put off 1 wound on that guy as well, so that now the same tank is carrying 3 wounds. I haven't killed it yet, but it's only got 3 wounds, so yeah. Things are not going well for me. So with shooting phase as well as magic phase over, we go directly to the close combat phase. So, during the close combat phase, the sword fight between my Lord Master's Blades as well as the Blue Company, as you can see, I killed 10 of those guys in close combat. They managed to kill 3 of my Lord Master's Blades. Needless to say, I just curb stomped these fools like it was nobody's business. Unfortunately for my buddy King Khalifa, he failed his break test. And so the Blue Company would go running for the hills and try to save the other remaining half of their Halberdier Company, which leads up my right-hand flank from my opponent's Imperial Guard exposed. However, because I made that bogus move of not maneuvering my cavalry during the combat reform in the last turn, I have to come up with something really quick in order to keep those knights kind of bogged down. So I decided to do is change combat reform real fast, have my swordmasters face off directly against the Vagrant Brotherhood. Now, if my buddy King Khalifa decides to charge in these knights, and my buddy King Khalifa shows that he's willing to do so, if he charges the force, all those guys will have to take dangerous terrain tests. He could lose some more of his knights. If they survive the dangerous terrain test, he'll have to then engage my swordmasters. Hopefully, I can hold them for a turn so that way I can then countercharge with my cavalry indirectly into the left-hand flank of that formation of knights. Now, I will have to take dangerous terrain tests as well because I'm turning through force, but at this point, though, I'm kind of grasping at straws because I have nothing to deal with the answer for that huge unit over there as well. Oh, I also forgot to mention as well, my Everwardens had no problem killing the 5 members of Rommel's Rangers. That's not coming if you've seen this photo. They're charged directly into the Empire's Great Swords. I forgot to mention that. I apologize for that. And at the same time, there's another kind of like these guys just kind of looking at each other lingering. Basically what ended up happening is that Hans Jaeger was able to kill one of my crew members for my Eagle Call Bloodthor. So now that unit has only one more operator left. But luckily for me though, it does buy my third remaining Bloodthor some extra time to do some shooting before it goes out of commission. So that's pretty much what I'm planning on doing on that part as well. So I got pretty lucky that way. However, the combat between Hans Jaeger as well as his crew of Eagle Call Bloodthors must be like the most epic combat in existence, because these guys have been engaged in 2 rounds and they have not been able to defeat one another at all. So it's like, I just can imagine like they're like swooping down trying to kill my guys and they're ducking underneath their Eagle Call Bloodthor and trying to survive and then taking pot shots back. But anyways, yeah, that pretty much makes it the combat phase for this one. So with combat over, we go directly to top of turn number 3 for the Empire. So that takes us to the top of turn number 3 after the movement phase with the Empire. And as you can see in this photo, a couple of movements start taking place for his troops. Primarily, the most impressive thing that happened is that the Vagrant Brotherhood decides not to charge into my Swordmasters, but rather changes position to kind of get directly charged directly at my my Silverhelm Knights, which is actually kind of a good move for my opponent. He does have a lot of great strength, great weapon-wielding knights. If he manages to get his charge off during his next turn, or if I manage to get my charge off next turn, he might be able just to beat me with the numbers that he has, in which case then he can overrun it directly into my archers and then sweep out my archers, then swoop onto the right hand side and then take out my units from the back, which could be pretty devastating as well. At the same time, he also manages to rally up his blue company, so those guys get their act together in turn 180 because they're done fleeing at that point. At the same time, the Panzer Baron just rolls another horrible roll when it comes to the artillery die roll. King Khalifa I think rolled a 10, so because of that he events something like all of his steam points. So because of that, this Panzer Baron is stuck directly where it's at. It can't shoot, it can't move. All it could do is just sit there and gather rust, which is good for me, but not so great for King Khalifa. So here's a closer left-hand flank with the Panzer Baron going nowhere, as well as Hans Jaeger and Königsmark going nowhere apparently because they can't get their act together and kill my Bloodthor crewmen, so that was kind of nice. And here's a close-up of his unit of Imperial Swordsmen, Great Swords, engaged with my Everwardens. At the same time, you can see his blue company getting their act together and coming around again to order to engage me at the same time. During the magic phase was actually pretty spectacular. None of his spells got off. I think he rolled like 4 magic dice. And I think I got 3 dispel dice. Managed to dispel all of his spells as well. It was kind of a weak, it was pretty weak magic phase. Nothing much really happened there. So because of that, we go from the magic phase directly to the shooting phase. And in the shooting phase, my opponent takes his Blitzen, which is Hellblaster Volley Gun, turns it to face my unit of White Lions of Trace, rolls his 3 artillery dice, and he rolls 3 misfires. Now, in case, if you're unfamiliar how a Hellblaster Volley Gun works, if it's the case where all 3 dice roll a misfire, what ends up happening is that you don't have the number of shots. What ends up happening is that the entire thing goes off, and you automatically get 30 shots directed at your opponent's unit that you're targeting. You do remove the unit, the Hellblaster Volley Gun, at the end of it because all 30 shots have just fired off the thing explode in the process of doing so. So that was kind of sad for my buddy King Khalifa. So he does lose his Hellblaster Volley Gun, but it does get 30 shots off. And if you notice, you're like, whoa, Commander CheapSkate, why is there a picture of a blank spot right behind the Great Swords? And the reason why is because there used to be a unit of 13 White Lions of Trace right there until that Hellblaster Volley Gun atomized it with 30 freaking shots of cannon fire from that freaking thing. It was absolutely outrageous, the amount of destruction that took place against that unit of White Lions of Trace. I think he had enough to kill my White Lions, and I think 7 times, like 7 guys over that, I believe is what ended up happening. I think he got like 20 kills off totally, so that unit just got atomized. So right now, right in that part of the battlefield, there is a bloody, gory paste of ground where you can find some lion pelts and bits and pieces of High Elf because those guys got atomized off the table. So that was absolutely brutal. And King Khalifa's daughter, which is his other great cannon, managed to atomize my last Eagle Claw Bloatthrower. He did like a long distance shot from his great cannon and just managed to bounce that thing up the hill and take out my freaking Eagle Claw Bloatthrower. So that was pretty sad as well. So now all that has to happen for my opponent to basically control the battlefield in terms of artillery fire is have Hans Jaeger and Konrad kill off my very last Eagle Claw Bloatthrower, which looks like it could be a possibility at this point. So with shooting phase over, you go directly to the close combat phase. And during close combat between the Everwardens as well as the Great Swords, the Black Company, I managed to kill 4 of those guys. However, in return, they managed to kill, I think, let's see here, 5, 6, 7. They managed to kill some of my guys. However, I did manage to pass my break test. It's because I had rank for, I think it's because I had rank bonuses as well as having my standard in there as well, kind of saved me as well. Same thing with, I think, the 4 that I killed. I think it kind of balanced out that way. So my Everwardens don't go anywhere. But then I realized now that my Spearmen don't exactly have what it takes to take on a heavy unit of infantry like this by themselves. These guys are packing strength 3 with spears. The only thing I have is the number of attacks that I can throw, because my entire unit of spearmen can throw all their attacks. The entire unit can fight because they have Valor of Ages, which allows them to fight in extra ranks, and then they also get spears as well, so that also stacks on top of that, so the entire unit can fight, which is pretty awesome. But unfortunately for me though, the strength value is not there enough to penetrate this heavy armor. So I'm beating them with skill, and I'm beating them with the number of attacks, but that's really all I'm having on my end. Plus these guys are swinging +2 strength great weapons, and it's just devastating for my low toughness. I gotta think of something really quick in order to save my guys, otherwise they will be dead my next turn. So with that being said, we're going directly to the bottom of turn number 3 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes us to the bottom of turn number 3 for the High Elves after the move phase. As you can see in this photo, I decided to do to advance forward in order to start engaging my enemy in close combat, because if I just keep on just hanging out like I am and not fully commit, I'm going to get destroyed. First thing that I do is I charge in my Silverhelm Knights, my Lancers Avelorn, with Tyrion directly into the Vagrant Brotherhood, so now those guys are engaged in close combat, which is going to be absolutely devastating on that part as well. At the same time, I also do a quick combat reform, quick swift reform with my Sad Flutes, get those guys into a column formation, and then move them up 4 inches as well. They will not be able to shoot during the shooting phase, which is kind of sad. However, they will be able to engage, be able to get into combat formations. That way they can start engaging units and giving some support to my spearmen against that unit of great swords, because I got nothing going for them. So that part's kind of cool there as well. Alright, so here's a close-up of my unit of Sad Flutes. Those are my unit of archers. I put them into a column formation, move them up 4 inches, 5 inches, so that way they can start engaging and letting some support in for my Everwardens, so that way they can take on those Great Sword unit. And here's a close-up of the charges that could place here on the right-hand flank of the battlefield. As you can see, not only did I send my Silverhelm Knights with Tyrion charging directly into the Vagrant Brotherhood, but I also charged in my Sword Masters of Hoeth, my Lord Master's Blade, into the left-hand flank of that Knight to the Vagrant Brotherhood as well. So now that unit is disrupted, so they won't get the Serpent ability for having more ranks than me either, so that's kind of nice as well. Plus, I'll be able to put in some high-strength attacks into the flank of these Vagrant Knights. At the same time, I also have my Silverhelm Knights gain +2 strength on their lances, as well as my Tyrion character to be able to fight this unit and kind of take them apart, which would be very, very helpful as well. Unfortunately for me though, I do have only strength 5 on the lances for my Silverhelm Knights, because they're only strength 3, and these guys are also toughness 3 as well, which makes them glass cannons, because these knights that I'm fighting against, they're packing great weapons and they'll just go right through that like it's nobody's business. Also weaken my armor save, so I just gotta be very, very careful how I'm going to do the combat in this next phase when I get to the combat phase. During the magic phase, Teclis is able to get off 2 spells. I cast Arcane Unforging again, this time onto the unit's standard bearer into the Great Swords. Managed to kill their standard bearer. That guy was packing the standard leadership. So because these guys no longer get a +1 bonus to the leadership anymore, so that was kind of nice. I also managed to get off Walk Between Worlds and move up my unit of archers up to this blocking position. As you can see there now, they have to stay about 1 inch away from that unit of Great Swords, because otherwise they'll be breaking the rules, because they can't engage any without charging them. At the same time, this does 2 things. One, it allows me in my next movement turn to go into that unit of Great Swords and take those guys out my next turn, and also protect my flank of my Everwardens from that blue company in case they feel squirrely and decide to charge forward. As a result, I also get a 5 ward save on my Everwardens, because that's the lore attribute for the lore of High Magic, which is pretty awesome as well. And because I got a really lucky magic phase in this one, I also managed to get Weason's Wild Form off by Yanni the 2 Souls. These are the mages right there located in the front rank of the Silverhelm Knights. Managed to give +1 toughness as well as +1 strength to my unit of Silverhelm Knights. So now my Silverhelm Knights are strength 4, toughness 4, which makes it a little bit harder for my opponent to cause wounds, but at the same time makes it easier for me to inflict wounds onto my opponent, because now my Silverhelm Knights are strength 6 on the charge of their lances. I also get strength bonus to Tyrion as well, which makes them really good for close combat. And speaking of close combat, because because I can't do any shooting because all my shooters are either engaged or were destroyed, we go directly to the combat phase. So the combat phase is absolutely brutal this time around. What I decided to do is I decided to issue a challenge to Tyrion against his captain, which is Sir Tybalt Kraus, the Vagrant Knight. That guy has a great weapon and shield as well, but what makes him so important is he has the crown of command, which would make this unit stubborn. So I decided to take him on into individual combat, managed to inflict all 4 wounds from my attacks onto that guy, killed the two wounds that he had, with 2 wounds spare added to my combat bonuses because I got overkill on that part, so that part was kind of nice too. Now because the challenge is over, the rest of the units can fight like normal. My Silverhelm Knights managed to kill 3 more of the Vagrant Brotherhood as well, so those guys are all now dead. They did manage to kill 2 of my guys in the process, but it could have been a whole lot worse if it not been for my Sword Masters of Hoeth right there in the left-hand flank. The Vagrant Brotherhood managed to kill, I think, 1 of my Sword Masters, and my Sword Masters were able to kill 3 of those guys as well. So with the combined charges from the flank as well as the combat res from the number of kills and rank bonuses and standard battle, center bears and charges and all that kind of nonsense, I end up winning this combat as well, and King Khalifa has to take a break test. And unfortunate for him, the Vagrant Brotherhood had to run. They had to run. They had to flee. I pursued. They fled, I think, 7 inches, and I think I overran 11 is what ended up happening. So then I ended up overrunning those guys and chopping those guys down to the last man and killing that unit as well, which is pretty good because that unit of Inner Circle Knights was absolutely devastating. The only way I was able to get this combat off was because I managed to kill their character who was carrying the Crown of Command. Otherwise, this would not happen. I also do a quick combat reform with my Sword Masters of Hoeth, so that way they're facing the left-hand flank of the Great Swords, as well as be able to charge into the Blue Company if necessary. So that pretty much makes the combat here on the right-hand flank. Combat between the Everwardens as well as the Black Company was actually pretty lackluster. They managed to kill 2 of my spearmen because I've made a lot of good saves with my ward saves because that 5 ward really helped out. I only managed to kill 3 of the Great Swords as well. I think this combat ended a draw, I believe, so because of that we don't really go anywhere. We just kind of stay our ground and stick where we're at. However, Hans Jaeger as well as Konig's Winter managed to destroy my very last Eagle Call Bloodthrower, so now I have no artillery support whatsoever, and now that guy is free to charge at my rear of my entire fighting lines and get me fully involved, which is absolutely awesome. So with that being said, ladies and gentlemen, we go directly to top of turn number 4 for the Empire. Alright, so that takes directly to the top of turn number 4 for the Empire. This is after the move phase. As you can see in this photo, pretty much King Khalifa does what he basically can to get his troops kind of engaged into the center portion of the battlefield, because that's pretty much where all the action is going to take place at. The first thing that he does, he sends in, charges in his Blue Company to engage my my Sad Flutes. Now my archers engage in close combat, preventing me from engaging that unit of Imperial Great Swords in order to add support to my Everwardens. So that part was kind of sad as well. He also marches up Königswinter as well as Hans Jaeger from the hill, from the Bolthor Hill, and has him go right directly in the middle of the board, so that way he can engage the rear of any one of my units or engage with his mainline units. Luckily for me though, his steam tank also rolled pretty poorly for the artillery dice. I think he rolled like a 10 or a 9, I forget which one he rolled, but because either way it led into him being had to vent all of his steam points again, so because of that the Panzerbearer can't go anywhere or shoot either. My opponent is having some really rotten luck with that steam tank, which is kind of working out for my favor, but that's pretty much about it. Here's a close of his Blue Company engaged with my archers, so that way I can't charge into the Black Company and support my unit of Everwardens, so that part was pretty smart. You can also see a close-up of Hans Jaeger as well as Königswinter getting ready to charge into the back ranks of my units. And here's the close of the Panzerbearer, unable to move because of steam points and just being able to stuck there and just kind of collecting rust. Magic phase is pretty much a wash for this turn, as well as shooting phase. My opponent tried to fire with Donner, but unfortunately for him, he rolled a misfire. He rolled a misfire 6, so that cannon will not be able to fire until turn 6 of this game. So that kind of worked out for my favor as well. So because there's no shooting or magic really much, because the magic got dispelled, we go directly to the combat phase. And in the combat phase, we had to fight between the Everwardens as well as the Black Company. I managed to kill 4 members of the Black Company. However, the Black Company did manage to kill 6 members of my Everwardens, which actually caused me to fail this combat. And unfortunately for me, I had to take a break test. I fled and the Black Company pursued. I think I got away like something like 6 inches is what I rolled for my flee, and he rolled like an 8. So because of that, he overruns my guys, chops down Teclis, chops down the rest of my Everwardens, and charges directly into my archers of my Sad Flutes as well. So now my Sad Flutes are facing both this unit of the Black Company, which is the unit of Great Swords, as well as the Blue Company as well. So that's not looking very well for my unit of guys either. So with that being said, that makes a combat phase over here between the Black Company and the Everwardens. However, combat between the Blue Company as well as my Safoots actually went very, very well. My Battle Center Bear actually did most of the damage on this one. We managed to kill 6 members of the Blue Company. They did not manage to inflict a single wound onto us. So because of that, these guys failed their break test pretty badly, and because of that, they were forced to run. But instead of pursuing after the Blue Company, I decided to take a combat reform because I'm already engaged with this other unit of Great Swords. I decided to maximize my formations. That way, I'll maximize against the Great Swords, and we can destroy each other that way in the next combat phase. So that being said, we go directly to the top of turn number 4 for the High Elves. Alright, so that takes directly to the bottom of turn number 4 after the move phase. As you can see, pretty much I did a couple of things. All I really could do, because my unit of archers engaged in close combat, the other thing I did is I took my unit of Silverhelm Knights, my Lances of Avelorn, as well as Terran. I did a kind of a J-hook march move, where I kind of went around the forest and came around to the back end, so that way I can charge directly into the rear of the Black Guard, the Black Company, as well as maybe take out the Blue Company as well. Hopefully I can take those guys out using magic during this phase and use my Ruby Ring of Ruin in order to do that. At the same time, I also charge in my Swordmaster's Hoth, the Lord Master's Blade, directly into the right-hand flank of the Black Company. And hopefully I can put some damage on those guys and take those guys out as well. Here's a close with my archers, as well as my Swordmasters of Hoth engage in close combat on the flank against that unit of Black Companies. So that will probably help me out on that part. And here's a close-up of my Lancers of Avelorn with Tyrion kind of doing that J-hook movement around that tree, so that way they can start engaging units as well, hopefully to the back of the Black Guard. So with that being said, we go directly to the magic phase. And during the magic phase, I had a very powerful magic phase during this one. I think I rolled like 11 magic dice. My opponent had like, I think 6 dice when he had to use the spell against me. But unfortunately for him, he was unable to beat any of my dice rolls because I was just basically spamming a couple of spells while I was really doing. First thing I managed to do, I managed to get out Savage Beast of Horos onto my Battle Standard Bearer. So now that guy has 6 attacks. He also has plus strength, so that makes this guy have 9 attacks with strength 9, which actually makes him very, very devastating in close combat. So I'm planning on using that guy to help kind of balance the scales a little bit in this engagement between my archers as well as the Black Company. And at the same time, I was able to get off Irresistible Force, the Ruby Ring of Ruin, the Fireball spell, and the Ruby Ring of Ruin. Unfortunately for me, it does kill my Ruby Ring of Ruin as a process of doing that as a side effect. But, you know, there's worse things that could happen. I didn't atomize that unit of Black Company, so now the path is completely clear for my Silverhelm Knights and Tyrion to charge directly into the back ranks of the Black Company during the next movement phase for my next turn on turn number 5. So because there is no shooting left in my army, you go directly to the combat phase. And close combat was an absolute bloodbath in this fight. It was absolutely devastating, all the amount of death that just kind of occurred during this turn. First of all, my archers, as well as my Battle Standard Bearer, my Noble with the Savage Beast of Horos, they managed to kill 8 members of the Black Company just by themselves. I did manage to lose 6 of my archers as a process of doing that, but you know, that's not really bad considering the fact that these guys are all carrying great weapons and they also have heavy armor as well. My captain was just swinging for the fences and chopping dudes down like it was going out of style. At the same time, however, my Swordmasters of Hoth managed to kill, I think, 7? Yeah, they managed to kill 7 great swords by themselves as well with the number of attacks they're getting off. It was absolutely devastating as a bloodbath. Unfortunately for my opponent, King Khalifa, he did have to take a break test, which he failed. As you can see in this photo, my opponent had to flee. I chased him down. I think I ran like 12 inches. I think I rolled boxcars on that part. He rolled like a 10. So because of that, my guys overran them, chopped down the rest of the Black Company like it's nobody's business, and we just absolutely destroyed that unit of great swords. And as you can see, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us directly to the end of the game. As you can see, all the things that my buddy King Khalifa has left is his steam tank, as well as his cannon and his captain on Pegasus. I still have a unit of archers, as well as a unit of Silverhelm Knights with my general, and that pretty much rounds up the game. My opponent kind of surrenders, takes a look, realizes he can't do much of anything, so he just kind of calls the game at this point. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that takes us directly to the after action report, because this battle report is now officially over.
Sure, I could have stayed in the past. Could have even been king. But in my own way, I am king. Hail to the king, baby.
Alright, you guys, now it's time for the after action report. This is the part of the battle report we talk about what went well, what went poorly, and what we can learn for the next time that we do battle for Warhammer the Golden Age. This is the after action report for battle report number 23. It was fought between myself as well as my friend King Khalifa of the Schwarzwald Free Companies of his Empire versus my Avelorn Guards of the High Elves. So let's go and talk about some of the factors that led to this being a victory for yours truly. First of all, let's talk about our losses real quick. I lost Teclis, the Everwardens, the Falling Leaves of Avelorn, the Everqueen's Rangers, as well as of word bearers. My buddy King Khalifa lost Gregor von Königsmark the Grim, Victor Hellsbrad of the Wilds, Maximilian Max, Captain Dieter Moons the Griffin Guard, Captain Tybalt Cross the Vagrant Knight, the Red Company, the Blue Company, Rommel's Rangers, the Vagrant Brotherhood, the Black Company, as well as Blitzen. This was an incredibly tough game. My dice abandoned me on this one, and I had really make magic phase. As a result of that, my shooting was really poor, so because of that, I didn't really do much of anything throughout most of the battle. Magic, for example, was not my strong suit. I didn't really come into like the last third of the game, and that was when my level 2 mage was actually just kind of kicking butt with his Lore of Beast spells. So I might want to rethink about taking Teclis. He might not be worth his weight in points anymore, but I don't know. I'm still on the fence about it. I do like the idea of keeping Teclis and Tyrion in this army. So I don't know, I'll have to still think about that one as well. On the flip side, King Khalifa's dice are very much a point on this battle report. He did very well for himself, made some good shots, as well as some good armor saves as well. Did a good job of throwing a wrench into my plans by using his skirmishers to block up my movement of my troops and kind of containing me into areas they wanted to keep me at, so that was kind of nice as well. He had a very deadly army to get in close combat with, and also did a very excellent shooting phase as well. However, his army does suffer from the fact that it's not very fast or maneuverable. It could be easily outflanked because his units are so big, but at the same time though, he does have a lot of power in those units, so he uses them pretty well as well. As always, this was a great game. It was a fun opponent to play against. Always love playing against King Khalifa, and I'm always looking forward to playing this guy on the rematch on that one as well. As always, you guys, please feel free to check out Facebook, Google+, as well as Instagram for all the latest updates to our hobby, and please feel free to comment, like, and or subscribe. You guys are always, his input is always appreciated. Remember, we alternate every Thursday between Warhammer the Golden Age, which is our Warhammer 8th edition fantasy battle reports, with Tales from the Underhive, which are for our battle reports for Necromunda, and also every Sunday we alternate between two shows, which is Age of the Realms, which is our Warhammer Age of Sigmar battle reports, as well as the 9th Saga, which is our 9th Age battle reports as well. As always, you guys keep it classy. We will see you on the flip side. Peace out, you guys.